Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for jumping on for today's webinar on Console Cloud's inspection workflow. We'll be getting started shortly, but just a little bit of housekeeping first. So in today's webinar, we will be running a Q&A chat, which you all should have access to, as well as the webinar chat. Feel free to jump in and introduce yourself through the chat. Would love to hear from you. And if you do have questions, we do ask that you use the Q&A chat to put those questions to us. I'll try to pause as I go to answer those questions as they come up as best I can. However, we'll try to keep a regular flow to things, so I'll try to handle those as a group. So do pop them in. We'll get to them as we go. Now, in today's webinar, I do have a quick poll for you guys first, just to get a bit of an idea about who we've got. So I'm just going to throw that up on the screen now. If you just want to let me know your answers to those, that'd be great. And what we're going to be covering today, and what we'll be drilling into today, are the workflow features around the inspection workflow, as well as the Console Go app, and how we can use a little bit of automation in there and some of those features to save on time, as well as peace of mind when we are conducting our inspections. Okay, all right. Thank you to those that have answered. So most of you are sitting around about the 12 months. So you picked this product up within about the last year or so. And most, well, just about 60% using the app. I assume for the other 40 who are not using the app there, you're probably using either a third-party application at this point in time, or most likely are. Now, I know what I'll be showing today will be the Console Go app, and do feel free to stick around to see what that does. And towards the end of the session, I'll wrap up with a bit more back in the desktop to sort of round things out. With that said, though, let's get underway and have a bit of a look at Console and the inspection workflow. Here we go. Excellent. Okay, so what you're seeing on screen here is my Reapit training office, and we're going to be going through a little bit of navigation to start with. Perfect for those new users. I know we've got a couple on the call here, so it is important to understand all aspects of this, and we'll be running through it end to end. Now, when we're talking about the inspection workflow, there are a couple of places where we can find a link through to that. First of those, and depending on your role, this may well be something that you have heads up when you first log into the system. So that's your dashboard. When you log in, you're going to be presented with this, and there is an inspection workflow widget letting us know how many inspections we've got overdue, coming up this week, next week, and so on. And clicking through this is going to drop us into the workflow where we can see our inspections in here. From the left-hand menu as well, and for the most part, you'll navigate to your inspection workflow from either the residential or the commercial, albeit most likely residential with most people, screen here where we have the inspection workflow button, which again is just going to drop us through to the same screen. That's just getting us through to the inspection workflow. Once we're here, it's good to understand what we're seeing on screen here before we kind of get into some of the more detail. Now, the inspection workflow is going to show you all open inspections, or it might have your most recent filter saved through here as well. So you do want to pay attention to that, as it might be limited to one inspection type or another. And we'll drill into that as we go. But for now, I have mine on the default setting, which is looking at all open inspections. As we scroll down, we can see what those are. We've got our properties, the tenant that relates to that property, the inspection type, when that inspection was due, and the details column, which will give us varying bits of information depending on various different factors. And let's get into that a little bit now so we understand what we're seeing on screen. Obviously, these ones here are overdue, but with our routines, that's not necessarily a bad thing, This is just telling me that the date that I expected to do that has now passed, but I certainly could schedule these for next week as an example. With our entry here though, this is telling us that it's in a tenant review state, so it has been sent to the tenant, and that was due to be completed by the tenant on the 14th of October, which they have not done so. We might come back to this one later and talk more about what we might do in that state, but that's what we're seeing there. As we scroll down, I'm going to find some routine inspections in here where it's letting me know that the inspection notice has been sent, and we can see the date of which those inspections are going to incur. That's actually letting me know that those inspections are planned and the tenant has been advised that those inspections are going to happen. And that's what we're seeing through here, because it's the details column that we're looking at to get that additional bit of information as to where those inspections are up to. So coming back to that then, we've got our routine inspections here. While these ones are overdue, at the moment, it's simply just got a time, who's assigned to that inspection, what the key number is for the property. But it has, well, with the exception of that one there, what this one here is saying that it's in progress, but I have not completed that inspection. But these ones are yet to be done. Now, to make things a little bit easier, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my filter to filter down on. So I'm going to run through a couple of scenarios. One, we're going to schedule some routine inspections, and two, we're going to create some inspections there as well. But let's start with scheduling routine inspections, as that's one of the main things that you'll do through the inspection workflow. Clicking on the filter from here, I'm going to use my filters to make it easier to filter out the noise around what we're seeing in here. I don't need to see entries and exits right now. I just want to see routines. And I can come through here and I can look to see if I can pick a different status. At this point, I want to go with all open inspections, as I'm not yet filtering down on, say, scheduled, in progress, or inspected properties. So all open inspections is what I want. If I wanted to, I could also filter down a specific date range. Potentially I was planning for next month, at which point I could use that to focus on next month so that I can then start to plan when I'm going to do those inspections. At this point, I'm just going to go with all just routine inspections. Clicking apply is now going to filter my list down to my routine inspections. I've got 3 in here, so that's this one, and this one that have yet to be started. So we're going to select these 3 inspections, and I'm now going to schedule these inspections for a new time and then send out a message to the tenants letting them know when I'm planning to come through. So from the 3 dots down the bottom here, I'm going to edit the details of the inspections. So I'm going to reassign these to let's assign them to Chris today, although I can select anyone within the company. I'm going to pick out a day next week. So let's go with next Thursday. And let's say that I'm going to be there between, say, 9 and 12. Hit save. That's now going to reschedule those inspections, albeit I have not yet sent through a notice. Now, we've scheduled that for the 24th, so that's next week. We can see in here, we've now got these 3 inspections in our list, scheduled for the 24th, between 9 and 12, assigned to Chris. At this point, I'm going to send through a message. From the 3 dots down here, you would have seen that says send inspection notices. And when I click this, it's now going to send a message out to those 3 tenants, advising them of the upcoming inspections on that date. And each message, where applicable for your state, will attach an entry notice. For Queensland, an example, that'll be a PDF notice letting them know that matches and is compliant with your state legislation. Hitting send fires that out of the system. Potentially, some of those tenants don't have email addresses, so that'll need to be printed or you'll need to contact them otherwise. There we go. All right, now I'm just going to refresh my page up the top here. And down the page a little bit further, I can now see I've got 1, which has been sent or is scheduled to be sent. And then I've 2 that have been created where I'm going to need to mail that out to them. All the same, I now know that all 7 that you're actually seeing here are upcoming scheduled inspections where the tenant has been informed of that inspection. So a little before we drill in any further with these, I do want to actually come back and let's just say, as an example for a scenario, um, the landlord likes to come through and with us for this particular inspection, and I know that. So I'm going to select the inspection from here, and I'm going to come down to messages down the bottom. From this message button, I'll have the option to message the tenant and the owner through here as well. So I could send out a message to the owner from here, inviting them to a routine inspection. The default templates that sit within your system will simply just be for the final report for each one. But if you wanted to create your own template, you can always do so from your settings. At which point, just pop in the relevant information and then send that out to your owner from the system. So you've got that recorded on the communication timeline for that owner. Alternatively, depending on how you use your system, you may actually choose to message your tenants through here, which point you could send out your bulk communication to all tenants through here instead, letting them know when you've got that routine inspection coming up, or potentially doing a manual reminder of upcoming routine inspections by email, SMS through here as well. Albeit, why do a manual reminder when we can actually set up an automatic reminder for that as well? So now that we have scheduled these inspections in here, we can also set up automatic reminders for our routine inspections up the top here as well. So where it says automatic reminder through here. Clicking on the settings from here, I can set this up just simply by turning it on and then clicking edit up the top here. Or actually, you can edit it first, then turn it on second if you prefer. Now, this reminder is just will be set to be sent at a specific time that you select through here. And it'll go out a certain number of days before the inspection. So we're going to go with 2 days today. And it can go out via email or SMS, depending on what we prefer. I like email, but SMS might be more applicable for you, depending on what works best. But as you can see here, where it's got this exclamation mark, it will only send the reminder if an entry notice has been sent. And that's where we come back around to the details column here, which is letting us know which routine inspections have had an entry notice sent through to them. All right. So that was my first scenario, setting up our routine inspections and sending those out. My second scenario is around the entry and exit inspections and how those are created, and generally speaking, how inspections are created within the system. So you will know, well, everyone's probably seen it, there is this add new button in here. However, in most scenarios, you shouldn't need to create your inspection through the workflow. The initial entry inspection and the routine inspection schedule are created when we create a new tenancy. Up the top here, I've got a tenancy which I've got to the end of its end of the tenancy creation process. And in here, we can see we've got that option to create that first entry inspection and that routine inspection schedule. And that will create those in the system for me as part of the workflow to add a new tenant. So I don't need to create that one manually unless I missed it. For our vacate, and I've got the vacate workflow up the top here as well, there is a button in our vacate workflow, if we're using this correctly, which will allow us to schedule inspections from here. So when we select this, we simply just need to put in the date and the time that we're going to be doing that vacate inspection and hitting schedule, or exit inspection, I should say. And those will automatically populate into this list here, where we'll be able to find our exit and entry inspections nice and easily. Let's go with an exit inspection here as an example. And we can see we've got this upcoming exit inspection. So this is booked in for the 1st of November. Tenant vacates on the 30th, and that's been popped into the system through the vacate workflow. So again, I shouldn't need to come through to here to create that unless I've missed it for some reason. That said though, I do want to show you how to create a new inspection, and we can do this either via the property or through here from the inspection workflow by clicking Add New. When we click Add New, all we need to do is search for the property we are looking to add in first. I'm going to go to Edward Street here. We've got the tenant to which that relates. For a new property, if you were doing an entry inspection and there was no tenant, that's fine. You would be able to create an entry inspection with no tenant there to start with. For obvious reasons, you might want to. That said, though, in this case, we're going to go with an exit inspection. We're going to relate that to the current tenant, and we're just going to put in the date and time that an exit inspection needs to happen. So let's say they're vacating on Friday. I'm going to do the inspection on Monday. I'm going to assign that to myself. We're just going to click Create Inspection. Simple as that. And that's popped that into the system. Now that I've got this inspection up on screen, I do want to show you one very important function through here through the desktop. So I have just created my exit inspection. And if I scroll down to the bottom, we have a report section through here. We can start the process of creating that inspection report. And you may choose to do so depending on what information you're looking to put into there. When I click create, one of the first prompts it's going to give me is, do I want to copy from the previous report, entry or exit? And it will give you a bit of a longer list here if there's a few more reports to pick from. You could go comments only, or you could go comments and photos, and that will change what you're going to see in the app. I'm going to go with comments only, at which point clicking prepare report will duplicate that information from the previous report, pull it into this upcoming exit report, so that when I get on site, I've got that there already in the report, and I prepared that in advance. And you can do that through the desktop. Now, let's back out of this a little bit further and repeat that process. So in here, we're looking at all of our inspections at this point in time, and I've got an upcoming entry inspection here for 3 Grove Road. If I click into the inspection from my inspection workflow, from the bottom of the screen here, I'll have that option to create that report. Now, in this case, this is an entry inspection. So it's got an extra step I can complete once I've completed that report to send that out to the tenant, which is why we're seeing step 2 down there. But first step, let's create that report. It's going to give me that option to copy from the previous report. And potentially in this scenario, we had an excellent exit inspection, and we're choosing to use both comments and photos from that exit inspection on my upcoming entry. Clicking prepare report will duplicate that report within the system so that I don't need to complete it all over again, at which point I could then go through and check the information that I've popped into here. If I'm happy with it, I can complete that report through the system here and then send that out. In that case there, though, we're not going to go through that full process today because you don't have the time to watch me go through that. But once you've updated that and you've confirmed what's been entered, you'll then be able to share that through here. Now, we'll come back and have a look a bit more at sharing when we after we've gone through the app. But for now, that's sort of showing you that process. All right. With that said, though, those are the 2 scenarios I wanted to start with in the app. Sorry, in the desktop. I now want to switch across to the app, and I'm going to show you how to work with the Console Go app. Just give me a second, just while I change my share screen here. There we go. Okay. All right. So what you're seeing on screen here should be the Console Go app. And we're going to just a little bit of navigation first, and then we're going to drill into setting up our inspections in here and how we set our inspection templates so that we've got something to work with. Now, so we've got, yeah, you'll see what I mean. All right. First things first, when you jump into the app, you're dropped onto your inspections. It should be on today's date. I was in here a little bit earlier preparing, but depending on what we've got into here, we can switch between the days of the week and we can have a look at the whole month. Anything that is in bold or not grayed out has an inspection on it assigned to me. You do have some filters through here as well, so you can filter this down. This is quite important because one of the things we might choose to do is filter it down onto one of our colleagues, so that if we're doing inspections from one of our colleagues, we can pull that up through the app and make it easier to find that inspection in here and help them out if we are. From the high level, we can also see obviously the property, but who that's assigned to through here as well. Now we're looking at doing an entry inspection here first, and I'm going to click into this and go through the process of setting up an entry inspection for a new property. And that's what I've got here today. This is a property that has been brought into the system. Maybe it's a new business we won, maybe it's a takeover, whatever reason, we've never inspected this property before. Even we can see that it's outlined through here because it's warning us or letting us know we have to set up a property template with the quick start wizard. Now, before we do that, what else can we see through here? Obviously, address at the top. Down below, we can see who the tenant is, we can see who the owner is, and if we've got any notes from the property, we will be able to see those through there as well. To get started, we're going to just click Get Started, at which point we then need to go through and set up a template. Now, if I'm setting up a new template, I can select apartment, house, commercial, and then through here, I can select what that's going to look like for this property. Alternatively, we can select a pre-configured template down the bottom here, where it might be where we would be able to find the appropriate template to start with. In this case, I'm going to go through the scenario for a new user where we don't have templates existing in the system, and we're going to set up our first template. I'm going to say this is a 3-bedroom house that we're working with, and now we need to go through and set up the details of that template. So 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and one thing I like to advise at this point is keep this neutral. We're setting up a template we are going to be able to apply to our other 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom houses. So if I've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house with 2 cars, and this is the default template, then this is something that I'm going to likely apply to other properties that are quite similar. So we don't need it to be too exact just yet. So we'll keep it neutral. And we can see down the bottom, we've got some additional things we can tick on and off through there as well. This looks good for me. That's a 3x2 standard residential house. Clicking next, we do have the option to customize this through here, which point we can then come through and customize the individual areas. On your phone, you should also have the option to say start to drag and drop some things, but unfortunately my mouse is not able to do that. If you wanted to say rearrange the order of these into an order that you preferred, you can do so by clicking edit and using the icon over here to drag and drop, but you can also click into each area, change the name of it, delete areas through here, and start to customize that a little bit further. But like I said, at this point, we don't want to do too much as we're setting up the template, not the individual property settings here. Hitting next will then prompt us to save that template. At this point, we want to give it a name, 3 bed, 2 bath, 2 car, townhouse. Save. Now I've got that in there, and we can start the inspection. When we click Start Inspection, I'm going to continue to talk about editing a little bit now, because this is the point at which we can now start to make it property specific. We have the option at the top here to edit, where we could add in additional room or additional information. Potentially, this has a basement. I know, not super common in Australia, but as an example, it might, because it's a unique feature to this particular property, at which point I can pop that in. I'm just going to put it in as a general room type. Alternatively, we could also click into, say, one of the bedrooms. Maybe this is an, oops, actually, let's go back a bit. So let's hit save there. Now, from here, we can then click into the individual rooms and start to work with them. Sticking with the editing, I'm then going to come through to bedroom 1 in this case, and I have the option to edit at a room level as well, at which point I can update the sections that are in here, adding or removing things that are applicable. Maybe there's no air conditioner in this one, so I'm going to delete that. Or potentially, this is an older building, and it's actually a fireplace. I'm going to update that through there. This is now updated for this particular property, and this will be carried forward to any future exit and entry inspections for this property. But it does not update the base template, which we created earlier. With that said, let's get into actually conducting the inspection itself. At this point, This is a simple tap and make notes situation through here with regards to our ticks and our crosses. Under our comments, we can come through and put in individual comments. It supports voice to text, so if you're using your phone, you can use that. And you can just start to type into here. If the room, you do have these quick notes through here as well, which you can use to just pop that into there. And you have access to add your own quick notes in. So if you wanted to put in better quick notes potentially, you can do so through here as well. Hitting save, comments in, of course. Photos can be recorded through here. So obviously where it's using your camera, you'll be able to take that photo. I'm just going to grab a stock image today, and any photos will fall into here as well. You can pop in maintenance against an individual error in here as well, where you could come through and put in a maintenance item if you noted something in the exit or the entry inspection that you wanted to log and send through to the owner, of course. Or seek the owner's approval, of course. Now, as we're going, we're going to mark this room as done. That's going to leave that as a green tick there, and you would go through and complete all of them. The extra information section up the top is where you can put in extra information about the property, say noting NBN boxes. Yes, it's got a box. It's in X room, providing that sort of information. You can put in safety information, last compliance checks, smoke alarms, electrical, gas, as well as just additional comments for the tenant through there as well. All of which, where completed, will of course appear on the report that the tenant gets, or if the tenant's using the tenant app, they'll be able to find it in the app when they're completing that report as well. Now, once we complete all of the areas in here, click Save and Close, and that's just going to bring us back out to this screen. For an exit and an entry inspection, that's as far as we get in the app. From here, we need to go back into the desktop where we would complete the inspection from there. And as an exit might go, you would complete it, close that off, or an entry would be sent through. And we'll have a bit of a look at that when we have a chance to jump back into the desktop in a moment. For now, though, I'm going to click back out of here. We're going to have a quick look at a routine inspection, just how that differs, and a couple of things to know about with routine inspections as well. So, coming over to the 17th, where I have a couple of routine inspections in here, booked in and ready to go. I'm going to be using this routine inspection here today. So this is for a property that we've done a bit of work at over time. And by clicking into this property, we can then come through and have a bit of a look at information about that property as well. Up the top, up the top here, before we start though, we have a send message option, which point we could send a text message out to the tenant, letting them know that we're coming through for that inspection. Down the page a little bit further, we can see obviously the tenant's notes, the tenant information in there. And for anyone who is working within the with Queensland legislation set up for their system, you will be able to see the inspection. You will be able to see the entry notice displayed here under notes as well. So you'll be able to pick that up from there at any time. Now let's start this inspection. Tapping on Start Inspection, the first thing it's going to ask you to do where you have inspected this property before is whether or not you want to copy from a previous inspection. That's up to you, depending on your workflow. Personally, I don't, as I know that when I go through to the next screen here, as I go through and check a few things, I will be able to see my notes from the previous inspection. Now let's have a look at that. So clicking into any one of these areas. When we click into that, we have the option to put in new information through here where we can report on how we feel it is. And down below, before we put any of this in, we can click View History, where we'd be able to go through and view the most recent inspection. Is it here? Yeah, okay, here we go. You can see that's what my most recent inspection there was. Overall clean and tidy, some pet damage. And I might come through, add that in, mark as done. Now, as an example of where you might go, okay, well, there is something to look at there. Did we record the same thing last time? Have we reported that as maintenance? And what we've done there, we could view the history, and if there was something to look at there, in this case, we've got scratch marks on the door. We can see that through there. got the photo of the marks from previously, and go, okay, looks the same, hasn't got worse, hasn't got better, whatever happens, happened there. And then through here, report that again, potentially pop in that maintenance, mark that as done. So we've got that in the app there as well. If we had copied the notes, that'll all be there from the start. If we're just going to be going through and flicking through to the previous notes, we've got that option through the history. Now, one of the other things we can do from a routine inspection report, we can edit this screen here by clicking edit up here, at which point we can change, say, the order of what's in here. And if there's any room in here we say wanted to get rid of, we do have the option to delete that through here. But be very mindful that if you do that, that's going to delete it from any upcoming entry or exit inspections that you might do, at which point you would need to re-add it when you're doing that as well. So do be careful with updating the inspection template at any time. That said, once we have completed our routine inspection, we can click Save and Close. And for our routine inspections, we have the option to send that report immediately if we're happy with what we've popped in there. When we tap on Send Report from here, we can send it to the owners, the tenants, the owner and the tenant. And when we go through to here, we have the option to send that out. This may or may not work within my training system. Cool, it's worked today. Wonderful. All right. So when we send that out from the app as well, if there is a fee to be charged, say an inspection fee at this point in time, we can charge that now as well. Clicking confirm raises that fee within the system and completes that routine inspection report. And that's just done through the app, all in one step. Backing out of here, however, if we wanted to just complete one of these inspections, take our photos and then go back to the desktop, we absolutely could do so as well. Now, just before we do go back to the desktop to wrap things up, I do want to mention a couple of quick things that we can do through the app, or rather we have to do through the app, and those relate to the inspection template and the quick notes. So from our bottom bar, when we go to the profile icon on the right-hand side, we have access to our templates and our quick notes through here. We tap on templates, we can see the templates that have been set up for this particular property, for this particular system based on the properties that we've inspected previously. And if we wanted to edit any one of these templates, we can do so, which point we can drag, rename, and delete. Actually, sorry, we can't. At this point in time, we can't edit these through here, but we can rename and delete them, and we can add new templates in at the top. One important thing to keep in mind at this point is, if you do delete one of these, that does not remove it from any properties where it has been applied in the past. It just removes it from the template list, so that's no longer there to be applied to new properties in the future. And you may choose to do so if you're tidying this up to get rid of duplicates. So with your quick notes as well, you have the option to come through and edit the quick notes that sit within the system. If you would like to make these more detailed or more customized to the way you want to communicate with your owners, please feel free to come through here and update those so that they're easier to select and they're personalized to the way you communicate. With that said, let's jump back into the desktop and have a bit of a look at actually, one pause. I just saw a questions come in from an anonymous attendee. Before we jump back in the desktop, will console be updated in the future to stop removed sections getting removed from the previous reports, or to at least bring them back accidentally? I'm going to be honest, I don't know off the top of my head. That's a good question for the product team. I would love it if you can pop that through as product feedback. And let me just jump back into the desktop here quickly so I can show you guys how to do this. Really good suggestion. I'd really like to see that come through as product feedback. So from your initials, top right-hand corner, you can click give feedback, at which point You can submit your feedback through here as a suggestion, or you can find similar feedback in here where you can follow that up as well. What I can do too is I can put that on my list to raise in the internal product meetings to see if we've got an answer around that. And if you wanted to reach out to us at any time to follow up on that, please send that through to customer success at Repit, customer success ANZ at repit.com, at which point they'll be able to keep track and update you as to those sort of things there as well. All right. Okay, so let's wrap up for today, having a bit of a look at the inspections that we have just completed. So let's refresh this here. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much for that. In here, we can see a couple of important things. So we've got those inspections down below, which obviously they're coming up. But we've got this particular entry inspection in here, which we've started earlier. From the desktop, in order to complete this, we have to click into the entry inspection. And if we remember, clicking on the filters over here, maybe drilling down on our entries and clicking apply can make it a lot easier to find them. And if we wanted to drill into this one here, we can then go through and check what we've done. So at this point, we have yet to send this out to anyone because we want to complete the inspection first. Clicking on View from here is going to bring that inspection up, where we can now go through and start to have a bit of a look at what we have completed today. So we can see in here, we've got our photos, we've got our comments, and we can click into these, and this will give us the full screen version of that. And we can come through and we can edit these as well. So we can edit our comments, we could change our photos as we need to do so before we're ready to send this out. Any extra information and overview is accessible through here, where you can come through and you can see what extra information we've recorded while we're on site. And the overview, of course, is in here as well, with any maintenance requests that we may have submitted where they might be relevant. Once we're happy with the inspection that we have completed, we click complete, top right corner. We're agreeing to an electronic record with regards to this because we will be sharing this electronically, or we may be sharing this electronically, I should say. Clicking confirm then completes that within the system, and we now have the option to share this with the tenant down here. When we click share, it does give us this caveat. So this is important. Once we share this with the tenant as the agent, we will no longer be able to edit this report. So everything we've done up to this point is locked. Got our due date, so I've got that in there as the 24th, and clicking next is going to share that with the tenant. This is what they're going to get, a template email. It'll have a URL through here, which will guide them through to the tenant app, where they can, once they've downloaded the tenant app, they'll have access to the report through there. And when we click send, away that goes, due on the 24th of October. Now that's using our system to send that out. One of the other things that's important, so at this point in time, that's going to sit there until that's done. Now, coming back out of here, the next thing we want to have a bit of a look at is, let's have a look at this one here. So this is 3 Grove Road, Hawthorn. So this particular one is a inspection where potentially I've done this in another application. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to be creating this within the system. Instead, I'm going to upload that inspection, which point I can browse the system, find the appropriate file. I'm just going to use a dummy file here for today's purposes. Okay, there we go. Done. Sorry, this is taking a little longer than I expected. Guess it didn't like my file. Okay, let me see if I can show you that in another way. Either way, let's Let's clear those filters. All open, apply. All right. So let's use this property here as an example. I'm going to open it up. Down below, I've got an inspection that I have completed, has been shared with the tenant. Potentially the tenant has not been able to get onto the tenant app and it asked me to send a copy through to them manually. I always have the option through here, actually from up here, to download the report. So I can click download report from here. When I download that report, it'll ask me if I want to include photos or not. If you have a lot of photos, it may tell you that it will not include those photos. Over a certain size, it doesn't make sense for us to include those photos because it takes too long to generate the report, and sometimes it'll crash. That's not an issue though, because when you download this report, it'll include a link to those in photos in that particular report where the tenant can get access to that at any time. So that's just under this section here. We got agent inspection photos and they can download those from there. At which point you could then share that with the tenant using messages and message them from the top right corner there. Now, if a tenant does not return the report, so in this case here, it is overdue, they haven't returned it, so we've taken it that, yep, that was due yesterday. We accept that they accept that the property is in the condition that has been provided. I should say we do have the option to reshare and change the due date through here if we needed to. But of course, if they are just accepting the property as is, that point we want to close the inspection off by clicking close inspection at the top. If there is an inspection fee to be charged, we can charge that. If not, we don't charge that, at which point that has then been closed. And we can download the final report from here or send the final report out to both owners and tenants from the three dots here as well, thereby finishing that off. Final thing I did want to mention as well, of course, is with regards to our routine inspections. Any routine inspection that has been done through the system can also be viewed. Actually, I should go back to a past routine inspection. So any routine inspection that has been done through the system where it's in progress, such as this one here, you can come through here and view the report that was created in the app. At which point you could come in, you can complete that. You can also edit this particular report. You can edit specific areas through here so you can see what photos were taken, what comments were made. And when you complete the report through the desktop, that will then record that as having been inspected. And from there, you can then close that off. And that may well be the process that you choose to follow, in particular if you're working in teams and you have an inspection team as well as the PM team back in the office that's checking the work that has been done before sending that out. But either way, now that that has been, that report's been completed in the desktop, I have the option to send that report out to the owners from here. Pardon me. And away we go. Sending that report off from the desktop. We'll get that out to the owners. And I just need to come up the top and close that off, at which point charging that fee for the routine inspection and finalizing that in the desktop as opposed to doing it in the app. Of course, if you're using a third-party application, that's the process that you would follow. You'd be finalizing them in the desktop and charging the fee at the final step in here. Any report that's pushed through from a third-party application would appear in the bottom of the inspection the same as an internal one does, just does not provide the option to edit that in the system as just an uploaded PDF, at which point you're sending it out the exact same way. All right, very final question, a very final point, and a good point to make nonetheless. Where do I find my inspections if I'm looking at a property? Something I do get quite often is from new users, where do I find my inspections? And while we can find them through the workflow, it's often easier to find it on the property because this is quite often where you already are. And you do have an inspection tab in here where you can see all upcoming inspections by default. And if you just clear the filter, you'll then be able to see all past completed inspections through here, where you can click through, have a look at that inspection. You'll be able to view the report that was created down the bottom here, and you'd be able to go through and find any, say, past photos. That's particularly important when we're talking about, say, entry and exit inspections for properties. So let's take this one here as an example. Entry and exit inspections in here, and if you wanted to refer to photos that you took in the entry or the exit for whatever reason, you'd be able to drill into that, you'd be able to find those photos there. With that said, that was everything we had for today's schedule. I'm going to just throw a quick, let me do a quick screen share here. So just in a quick recap, basically workflows are designed to help you keep track of your key tasks. Console automation is there and built in to help you save on a little bit of time and peace of mind with follow-up. And if you want to set up your inspection templates in the app as well as those notes, please get in there and feel free to do so. Now, I've got a final poll here just as we're wrapping up, as I would like to hear from you guys with regards to what you learnt today, as well as what you would like to see in upcoming webinars as well. So I'm just throwing that one out there. Please let me know, keen to know. And when we wrap up today and when this finishes up, you will find a survey link pop up on screen. Do feel free to fill that in, as we would love to hear back from you with regards to how you found today's webinar. And I'm just going to throw that into chat here as well. Please let us know how you found today's webinar. We would love to hear from you. With that said, thank you all for your time, and hopefully see you around on another one.